back again for something a little bit different today. Normally doing fragrance reviews, EDTs, EDPs, the perfume and so on. I just thought I would go over again because the idea behind the channel was to try and help people and give them realistic reviews and unbiased, non-biased opinions with different products. So again, you know, hair products that I've actually had, as you can probably tell from previous videos and how my hair is now. It's not like that you take pride in your hair, but again, as an older guy and knowing how with people in my family and even friends my age, how there's a genetic component that falls into hair loss and receding hairline and thinning hair and so on. I just thought it would be kind of by putting this video out there with some information and knowledge that I've gained over the years in terms of keeping your hair healthy and keeping your actual hair. I think it's kind of like something that I think would interest a lot of people, because again, I'm going to be 38 in September, and most guys my age, not just due to overuse of hair products, but just again genetically and age dependent, they can find that with maintenance of hair, it's a bit of a nightmare. They have to supplement with certain things. They have to buy certain products just to keep the hair on their head. And it's kind of like, it can be depressing. I'm not gonna lie. If anything, when I was a lot younger, I had really long hair. Believe it or not, it's actually, I'm growing it out at the moment. Just as a side note, I just thought I'd mention that. So genetically, from a young age, I actually had very long, thick, curly hair. Not even as dark as it is now. Not that I dye it or anything. It's just, for whatever reason, hair on certain parts of my body is very dark. Like, facial hair and hair on my head, but yet hair on my arms it looks like I don't have any. I actually do. It's just, it's blonde, or it's very faint. So again, there's a genetic component, whereas obviously I'm not going to unbutton my top, but the hair on my chest is very, it's thick and like the hair elsewhere. Without going off into a tangent, I just thought I'd do like more of an introduction as to, products that I'm going to review, and this video here is just kind of more of an introduction and just sort of like tips and, I don't want to say tips and tricks because it's not a computer game, but kind of like what I've had to do and what I've had to learn over the years to kind of keep the hair on my head and to keep it growing and healthy. And again, trust me, being a guy, most guys, they don't condition their hair, they don't even use shampoo, they don't wash their hair, albeit it looks like mine isn't washed. I'll get onto that in a minute. I've actually had a shower, washed my hair. I've just got a light product in at the moment. It's actually a hair tonic. But again, these are products that I'll review at a later date. I'm just going to do a general here and an introduction. So probably be easier to say like from where I started. So obviously being 37, 38, when I was at primary school, most mums, it wasn't boys doing their own hair, it'd be your mum doing your hair. Most guys during the 90s, they were blessed with the curtain or bowl haircut. Obviously, if you had shorter hair or even a shaved head, back then, or very short hair, that wasn't a problem. Again, you couldn't, thinking back, you couldn't really dictate what you wanted, where nowadays younger kids, boys and girls as well, they got a bit more say in what kind of hairstyle they want to sport when they're at school and growing up. So, and obviously due to social media and so on, there's a lot more emphasis on how you look and your own style, where back in the day, not that that wasn't a thing, but let's just say it was a bit more relaxed. So first experience in terms of hair products, I was probably about, so what's year 5, year 6. So again, I think that it's still termed that now. Again, I'm Grandpa Simpson. I'm going back many years, but year 5, year 6, at primary school, was using the Herbal Essences hairspray. I was going from obviously Silvercrin or whatever the hell my mum was putting in my hair. As I said, I had curtains, I had long, thick hair, actually a lot lighter than it is now, more a brown colour, slightly dark brown. Well, obviously it's almost black now, my hair, or very, very dark brown. And yeah, the herbal essences, it was like a craze. They had the women's shampoo and so on. I won't go too much into it, but it was a spray. It smelled nice. You put it in your hair. It was sort of style it to a degree, hold it in place, but not very well. So yeah, in the 90s, again, I'll go over my notes. I've luckily wrote some down. During the 90s, predominantly boys or young men were using gel as the primary hair fixer, styler, and so on. And no matter what people's style was, gel was kind of cheap and versatile in the fact that you could do, you know, a slick back style. At that time, I still had curtains going into secondary school. Then I started having the spiky hair, and then a quiff, I believe it was called. So it's kind of like what I have now, what's classed as a pompadour, but it was just the front. Everything else was flat, very short sides. And again, through them years of VO5 gel, Schwarzkopf gel, all of the main companies that most are still around there. Brylcreem, when thinking back when David Beckham was big, with his sponsorship for police and so on, all the boys were wearing Brylcreem. Not the original. They made their own version of a gel. It come in a green and I think a blue. Again, without going off into a tangent, gels were, for the by and large, kind of a basic hair product that did the job in terms of you could get more of a wet look that would keep it very watery and sort of manageable. But it depending on what you were doing, if you were working a long day, or depending on if you're playing a sport, like for me, football, and going to school, I preferred a harder, longer lasting hair gel. And again, depending on the style, having spiky hair or a quiff, you would obviously apply more in the front, and then you would, you know, I don't want to say fade it because that's a term that comes in more in the 2000s for a hairstyle, but you would kind of run your hands down the side and then you'd finish off the gel. So it was easy to use, easy to apply, and boys, that's what they were using in the 90s, predominantly boy bands everywhere, on the TV, footballers, all guys were using hair gel. Now we fast forward to the 2000s, so obviously I've left school by this point, going into more my A levels and college and so on, and then looking for work as an adult or a young man. With more responsibility, with more power comes more responsibility. So not only would you need something that would maybe befit the hairstyles at the time or how your own hair was changing. One thing I could say about the gels in retrospect, thinking back, it was easy to wash out as well. So that was a plus point that I've actually just thought about myself. And it was cheap and readily available, but it was kind of a thing of the time, shall we say. People still use gels now. They can still use it in various styles, but I just find that it's a one-dimensional product that kind of can limit how your hair performs through the day. And even then, a lot of it was like it with most things in life, advertising, you know, super strong hold, and then with 2 to 3 hours your hair might just fall apart, literally, in terms of, say, the style could collapse, or it could leave residue in the hair, which again leads me on to a lot of these gels are they felt very synthetic, both the smell and the long-term effects on the hair. I remember it used to affect me in terms of dandruff, depending on some of the gels I would use. And it wasn't just me, there were lots of boys at my school, not just talking hormonally, because again, there's genetic components when it comes to skin conditions and so on, but in terms of people putting harsh chemicals in their hair, like women dyeing their hair, bleaching their hair, there's always some kind of price to be paid along the way. So yeah, we'll end on the gels. They were a thing of the 90s. You can still get them now fairly cheap if, you know, you're looking at that. Obviously you can pay premium rate for certain brands, but they're kind of a thing of the past, in my opinion. I feel they can damage the hair, and I don't think that there's a reason why, if you talk to most guys nowadays, that very few, some will still be holding on to the gels, that most will be going into or using what I'm going to describe next. So going into the 2000s, if anything, wax and clays started coming more readily available on the market. Not that they wasn't there before, and even pomades have been manufactured and developed since I think the 30s and 40s even. So again, it's kind of like we're going to the 2000s with the wax and clays, doing a similar thing in terms of just styling the hair, but usually with some kind of a little bit more about, and with say a fragrance within the formula, or they would even be able to hold the hair longer in some regard, or give it a matte effect and so on. So again, that was kind of like the 2000s into the 2010s. I used various waxes and clays, and I tended to find, despite it being greasy, that it was actually better in terms of for my hair. And the weird thing is, though, that even though I say that, it would often be harder to wash out of the hair. So I don't know if there's a component of like the oils or whatever they were using in the products could be actually nourish the hair from the follicles, or whatever the term is, from the roots. But I did find that actually using these products over years, it actually darkened my hair slightly as well. Again, there's a genetic component to that. But it made my hair, yeah, kind of, I don't want to say thinner, but it was more like defined, almost like there was potentially more, it was changing something in the hair. Let's just leave it at that. And again, that ties in with age and so on. So I'm not going to just say that waxes and gels is something that you want to be putting in your hair, but maybe the ones I was using at the time, I think it was American Crew, and again, various others at the time. I've used the VO5s, and they're got to be that again, in terms of when I actually go through reviewing the individual products, I'll go into more detail then. And into like the 2010s, it was more like fibers, which again was kind of a hybrid of the wax and clay and the hair gel in the way that they kind of styled the hair, and that they could be easily applied, but they could rework hair. And I think there was even rework putties by VO5 and various other brands along the way. As I said, this is more of an introduction, just going through a brief history with some little tips and tricks along the way, which we'll get to. And then for me, in the 2010s, so pretty much I predominantly use pomades, or various forms of pomades by certain companies. Again, I'll go into this at a later date. This is just going through a sort of timeline and a history as to what I've used, my experience, and where I am now in terms of what I use to sort of kind of keep my hair on my head, keep it as healthy as I can. Obviously, I don't actually wash my hair every day. This is a thing that I found, that when I was washing my hair every day, it was actually drying it out. And I don't actually believe, I think there's some even experts that say that